correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPGs, a podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Me and Steve Talk RPGs. My name is Steve.
And my name is Steve. And I think we're going to talk some RPGs.
Yeah, you know, I wonder if the people who named the show were that clever. Or just that bored.
Little column A, little column B.
Something like that. Or that uncreative. No, we're actually very creative people, just not in typical ways.
We don't have any sense of graphic design or marketing.
Good heavens, no. Marketing. All right, here, listen to my podcast. That's marketing.
You like RPGs? You like RPGs. Listen to my podcast. It's about RPGs.
But, you know, in all seriousness, yeah, welcome back to the show.
Yep.
So before we get into everything, as opposed to shouting out another podcast of the D20 Radio Network this week, we're going to talk about Gamer Nation Con, because Gamer Nation Con is coming up. Gamer Nation Con 10, or Gamer Nation Con X, as it's titled this year, is happening April 3rd through April 6th at Dallas Games Marathon in Plano, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas.
Yep.
For those who haven't heard us rant and rave about it before, it's a gaming convention, but it's not like other gaming conventions.
No, it is very much, pretty much exclusively the RPG room of a gaming convention, and it's so awesome. And yeah, I'm bummed that I can't be there this year, but such is life.
Well, I will be there. I already have my plane tickets booked and actually booked a hotel as well. So I will be there. Like I said, if you're interested, I'll put links to everything in the show notes. But you can look they're selling badges through tabletop events. Run it down real quick. Basic 4-day badge will set you back $80. That gets you into the convention all 4 days. Gets you a swag bag, which usually has some goodies in it, and a t-shirt.
Yeah, for $80.
So what that then enables you to do is run and play as many games as you can fit into the time you're there. Also worth mentioning, like you said, it's kind of like the RPG room at a traditional convention, if you will. But we also have access to the entire Dallas Games Marathon board game library to use while we're there.
Correct.
And
it's a crazy library. That library is awesome.
So somebody actually was asking on the D20 Radio Discord about, was there a list anywhere of what they have in their library? And everyone was like, yeah, it's probably there, because that's the simplest way to do it. Well, this person actually went and found, and through, I guess, DGM has their own Discord, and they actually have a file on there you can download, which is the library. Now, it's done in a spreadsheet form. It is 75 pages.
Oh, my God. 75 spreadsheet pages, mind you.
Yes. Like sheets, we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
You know, like in a Google Doc, it is 75 pages long. I think the last number I heard was somewhere over 3,000 titles.
Oh, I'm sure. That's crazy. That is crazy. You should see that in person. It is just as cool as it sounds.
So yeah, for $20 a day, you can get access to all of that, plus, you know, roughly 150 really cool people to game with. Like Steve said, exactly. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to make it this year. I'll be there. I know Brett, who you've heard on the show, if you've listened to us regular, any amount, is going to be there. Obviously, GM Chris, GM Phil. And the other thing that they do now, like I said, the regular badge is $80. Mm-hmm. You want to step it up a little bit and spend $110, you get all the stuff you get for the regular badge price. This is what they call a really valuable gamer package, right? But then you can also get a guaranteed game with, say, if you wanted to bid for the Me and Steve RPG, you get a guaranteed game with me or Steve, if Steve's there, one of the two, with us running the game. They also do that for the Eberron Renewed podcast. Studio 404 is doing it. The Order 66 podcast does that, although they're sold out. And then they also have the MVG, which is a bit more expensive and always sells out very, very fast. And that gets you all kind of special stuff. But the other thing this year, their guest of honor is going to once again be Sam Stewart from Edge Studios, because, well, Gamer Nation and Edge/FFG just sort of have this relationship.
Yeah.
Plus, Arkham Horror just came out.
Right.
So
a new product.
RPG. Yep.
Finally.
So Sam's going to be there. He'll be around, running games, etc. Like like I've described it before. It's not like PGX is a cool little tight, very community convention, right? But Gamer Nation Con is like the best way I can think to describe it really is like, imagine if you had like a college gaming club, right? It's run for years and years at your university, and on homecoming weekend you all get together and just game all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Gamer Nation Con is like. Like it's really, it's almost like this family thing, right? Like you meet people, you become friends, and then they introduce you to friends, and it's just like, so when we went down there the first year, 2 years ago, I think was the first year I went down, you went down.
Yeah.
There were a grand total of 4 people at that convention I had ever gamed with before, including you, our friend Jesse, who I had gamed with years before, and GM, 4 people. GM Chris, who ran the Genesis actual play we did a while ago, the Mind Over Matter, well, way back, and Brett, who I had played online with, although we didn't record that one. In the entire time I have gamed at GNC, there was never a table I sat down at that I hadn't gamed with at least one person at that table before.
Right.
Because Brett was in the first game I ran there, and between people that were at that table ever since, there's always been at least one person at a table that I have played with before, if not multiple. But that's not like saying that, it's not like there's 10 people there, so it's always the same people. It's always different people, but there's always familiar faces.
Right. Yeah, I love GNC, and I'm very bummed that I can't be there. But I love GNC. It's definitely one of my favorite cons. I love going to PGX in Pittsburgh, but man, GNC holds a special place in my heart because it is a blast, just a blast.
And I am working on 2 special things. So I'm trying. I think I'm going to try something kind of experimental with Genesis. And then I am working on, well, Steve, I'll describe it to you this way. Think about what you would get if you took Havoc Brigade, maybe a little bit of Fate, and Finding Bigfoot, and stirred it around in a pot.
Nope, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Because the theme this year is paranormal.
Right.
So, Bigfoot, I don't know why. I fell down a rabbit hole of watching like Expedition Bigfoot and Finding Bigfoot because it's just entertaining to me. And then I went, what if you took, because I had actually last year went, well, what if I did, because last year, for anyone that was there, may have gotten to play, I know, a fair number of people did, I ran a Lord of the Rings-esque themed hack of Havoc Brigade that was so much fun. And so the thought occurred to me when they announced the theme of what if you did Havoc Brigade, but instead of orcs, they're Bigfoot. And then I went, but that's too the same. Like, it's not, but it is, right? So then I thought, what if you take the Havoc Brigade approach, but you split the table and one side plays researchers and the other side plays Bigfoot?
Oh, no. Oh, no. That sounds like a good time. But again, that is Gamer Nation Con, Dallas, Texas, Plano. You can find everything, I'm guessing, well, on the Facebook for GNC.
I'll put the links in the show notes for the tabletop events site, and probably the link for the hotel block, because the hotel's like a mile and a quarter from the venue. But
walking distance.
Yeah, I walked it last year. I mean, it took about 15, 20 minutes, but it's like, other than where you have to walk up the overpass, so to speak, over the expressway, it's flat.
Nice.
So,
I mean, it is Texas,
right? Like,
I don't mean to throw shade at Texas, but we live in Pennsylvania. We got hills.
See,
we
you want to know
do
something?
A lot of up and down.
I was visiting my brother in Indiana,
right?
And we were somewhere, and someone was talking about, and now he lives outside of Indianapolis, and if anyone's ever been there, if you're from an area like we are, it's flat. Okay, once you get halfway across Indiana, you can see Illinois.
Right.
This person who's from there was talking about going to Kansas and how flat it was, and I'm going, how the heck do you get flatter than this? What do people from here think is flat?
Yeah, I kind of want to go to Kansas and see what's flat. Like, how mathematically flat can we get? Like, but yeah. And then you had a topic, well, actually 2 topics for tonight, but the first topic,
this happens to be episode 187, which of course in pop culture, everyone, the whole supposed police code for murder, whatever. And of course, what is everyone's much derided RPG party trope?
The murder hobo.
Right. And I don't know. It seemed like we had to bring it up because, episode count, etc., and so on. I don't know. I think, in all honesty, I've been pretty lucky in my gaming career that I don't think I've ever really gotten sucked into that thing. I mean, maybe I did and I didn't realize it, but
I've never been sucked into it in a particularly, like, I've never just murdered an entire village for no apparent reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I've definitely had games where my enjoyment purely comes from the combat. And unfortunately, most of the time that's because of poor GMing on the other side of the table. But that's neither here nor there.
Well,
go ahead.
No, I think too, though, was an element of design for a long time. Like, right, I remember back in college, we did the old AD&D Dragon Mountain module in a weekend.
Well,
now, if we're
right, talking AD&D, I mean,
2-inch box set.
Yeah,
but that was literally like that whole module is nothing but traps and murder.
I mean, it's
and so
that's what that game was at that point. I mean, that's in the evolution of that game. That's what they thought that wanted to be.
Right, and it has a place, right? Like, I mean, look, let's face it. How many computer games or whatever? Really, that's what it comes down to. Well, I mean, so I guess though,
I'm sorry, but it's entertaining sometimes. It's entertaining to just go kicking indoors and rolling through rooms and, ask questions later. That can be really entertaining. I find myself having a good time with that on occasion. I just can't do it all the time. I need more depth than I'm here to, for lack of a better term, kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum, right? Like,
right. I think you're right. I think it's the evolution of the hobby is that just most of us now, like, we can get that fix from a video game very easily.
Yeah, I think we've really, I think our particular side of the hobby has really transitioned towards a more narrative and what I'll refer to as a more rounded experience where if you're having combat, it's more balanced with narrative instead of being swung one way or the other. I think we're seeing a side of the hobby that's, like I said, more rounded, more based on what we see out of, like, and I know this is sort of a weird cliche. I realize that a lot of my stories that I tell when I'm running a weekly game, let's say, is more of like an episodic television show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or this week, and then this week, and then this week. And they're all tied together, and it's all one overarching story, but it's more like an episodic television show.
Mm-hmm.
Where you'll have a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this and some intrigue here. Whereas like when I was younger, and you might agree to this too, back when the AD&D days, it was a lot of, oh man, let's sit down with our buddies and just roll some dice.
Right.
I just want to roll some dice and add some numbers and high five when we kill a thing, right? Like,
Right. And laugh at the things that don't go the way we planned them.
right? Yeah. Oh man, I stabbed myself in the foot. Ah, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, and it look like, in a sense, right? It is fun every now and then, and like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's. I don't think there's anything wrong with it per se. It's just that you can get so much more from the hobby if you want to, and I think you're selling it short if that's the only way you play. Does that sound?
While I agree with you, I think it's also people put into the hobby what they want to get out of the hobby, right?
Right.
So if that's not what they're looking for, they're very well welcome to find a game where that's, you can roll through and just be a murder hobo. If you're just looking to do that, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong, but that means you have to find a table that fits you and don't expect every table to be the right table for you.
True.
And that's just the facts. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful in any way or rude to anybody, but that it's particular player, you're going to need a very particular table.
Yeah.
And I've found myself having that conversation with kind of on a regular basis. Is like, hey, look, I understand you're looking for this particular thing. However, the rest of this table, and including myself, are interested in something different. So maybe this isn't the table for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, you've got a point there. It's a valid way to play for sure. It would not be my choice. And like I said, I think for me, I can get the same dopamine rush that I get from playing that kind of game, playing a video game. And I
Yeah.
like to go to RPGs for things I can't get from video games. I guess that's me though. That, like you said, that's what I do it for. That doesn't mean that's what anyone else has to do it for.
Right. Yeah, I get where you're coming from with the video game idea. I just know that, like, I don't know. I know that I've talked to people that are like, oh yeah, I like to roll physical dice.
Oh, I do too. Don't get me wrong. But like there comes to it too, where like you
But
can roll
again,
dice for more than just combat.
yes, but again though, that also comes back to the conversation of I've never really encountered somebody who's just wanted to murder an entire town. Right. Like I've never come across what I'll refer to as the stereotypical murder hobo, which is everything must die.
Right.
I've never come across that. People that describe themselves as murder hobos are more interested in just not participating in, let's say, role-playing sessions and more interested in participating in combat,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. Now, I don't know. I know that personally, I would clash with someone who was like, "Oh, I just murder the shopkeep," because A, no, and B, no. Like, you're not gonna murder them because, of course, I statted this shopkeep out to be 5 levels higher than you, and B, no, you're not gonna murder them because they're literally trying to help you right now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like the term gets overused, and I think where it becomes a problem is if you're saying if someone is basically just going on a wanton killing spree for literally no reason,
Yeah.
that's when it's a
It
problem.
That's when it's a problem. Absolutely. But, you know, that's when you just have to step back from the game and be people for a minute and actually have a conversation with somebody and be like, "Hey, you're ruining my enjoyment of this."
Hmm. Yeah, no,
And,
I think
yeah.
yeah, that's a conversation. I don't know. I guess I kind of hope I don't have to have.
Oh no, not knock on wood. I never want to have that conversation, and I feel absolutely horrible for anybody who has ever had to have that conversation. But it's a reality of this hobby, and it's a reality of this community is sometimes we have to have unfortunate conversations with people.
Right. But that's I mean, that's people though, honestly. Like,
that's
unfortunately,
I
every time you open social media.
yeah, because of what I do for work, I have to have unfortunate conversations with people all the time. So I'm sort of numb to that kind of thing. But yeah, it's I feel like that's life,
Yeah. It's the state of the world we're in currently,
Uh,
for whatever that's worth.
I don't want to get into any of that.
Right. Well, but that, in a sense, right, the state of the world as we're in currently kind of leads into our other topic, if you want to do that now.
Oh, it does. It does. What also leads into our other topic is having conversations. So the other topic we had for tonight was talking around, and you can shout out who put this in our Discord.
Decurion.
Oh, okay. Put up the idea of talking around communication in game. So, how does that shape narrative and
Right. And so, yeah, and we're this like, and what we're talking about here is not your players talking to each other at the table. It's not you
No.
talking to your players or your players talking to you. What this conversation was kind of about,
Sorry,
that we had a
time out for half a second. I had like a spaz attack and just attacked microphone for no reason. Just bear with me. That's what that loud clunk was. I like reached up to stretch, and my arm just went blah and attacked my microphone for no reason.
There you go.
All right,
so
I'm good now.
But so this was more about, and this doesn't necessarily apply to all genres, because, like, if we're running cyberpunk, right, it's kind of understood that people are going to have cell phones
you're tapped
and
in
radios or whatever. But Deck brought up how much it seems now, even if you're playing in a fantasy or whatever setting, that because we as people are so used to instantaneous communication, they want that in their games. Be it like his Exalted players made some sort of thing, like these earrings that basically were magical walkie-talkies. Critical Role did that in campaign 1.
I have a player who, like, thematically finds reasons for them to have telekinesis, just to have communication with the rest of the party. I get that. I hadn't thought of it that way. But yeah, no, I it's interesting, and then I would love the idea. I'd like to play with it, and I haven't got a chance to. I'd like to play with the idea of taking that away. Okay, so you run a campaign where they have this communication the entire time, and then you get to a spot where you take that away, and then just what chaos does that entail, right? Because now instead of me asking, could my ear Steve go over there, it's like I have to like communicate to you through some sort of other way, or make my move and hope that you pick up on the plan.
Right. Well, but think about this. And my thought about this too is, how does this impact your storytelling, right? And the thing I want to point at with this, just as an example, my wife is a big fan of the old Beverly Hills 90210 series. Classic television, depending on your age, right? And so I've seen a lot of that series. I didn't say it was great. I said it was classic.
I love that show. I can't say nothing.
Okay. But think about, though, how many of the storylines of that show just don't work in an era of cell phones and texting.
Oh, man, we can't talk about that because there's whole movies that don't work now because of an era of cell phones and texting.
But what I'm saying is, right, think about how does that has to have an effect on how you tell stories. Or like, okay, Die Hard 3. They managed to, convince the police not to use the radios, and that was when cell phones were just kind of becoming a thing. And there's a bit in there where I forget, they steal the car and then the phone quits working or gets shot, or I don't remember now exactly, but you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I remember,
But
but I don't remember
but
the exact details, but I know what you're talking about.
again, think about that movie if they're cell phones.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
It doesn't
if
work.
there's easy communication, it just doesn't work.
Right. And so like I don't know, like I think you really have to think about, man, what does it mean to have or not have that level of communication? And as much as they want it, and yes, you want to give players what they want, maybe sometimes you don't. Or like you said, you take it away. Or at the very least, look, if they have it, then so can the other side.
Right, right. Who's to say the other side isn't tapped in? Yeah. Who's to say the other side isn't listening?
Well, Die Hard 1 when he's got the radio.
Right?
He steals the walkie off the one guy that he kills. Like it's boy that that's a big can of worms really, and like I don't know the answers. I know. Well, you were
I
there.
think it's like I think it's like a lot of things though, and I don't mean this to be rude, but I think it's like a lot of answers. There's no definitive this is the way to do this. But the reality is that's a tool to put in your tool bag.
Mm-hmm. Both
But
in
you
allowing
were
it or disrupting it, right? Like
yeah.
you were there. This was before we even started the podcast. We actually kind of half recorded it just to test out our methods. The I ran you
All the
through
Delta Green.
the Delta Green, and
Yeah.
I put you the characters in a place where there legitimately is no cell reception.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this I could tell actually unsettled one of the players. And like we were playing strictly, audio only online, and I don't know, I could tell that was very unsettling for this person.
Yep. Yep.
And so like you said, taking it away can be I think you have to add it to the list of things you manipulate. I don't know
Sure.
if that's the right word, but it's kind of the proper thing.
One of the dials that you turn.
There you go. Yeah. Like, and because it does, and in a sense, right? Like sometimes the fun is, at least for me, okay? So
Okay.
we make a plan in our D&D game, and Steve, you're going over here, and Steve, you're going over here, you know, and then when Sue does thing, both of you do whatever,
Right.
right? Or even in and we didn't have any sort of comms, I don't think, in the Oblivion War thing we did, and there were some of those scenes where we were all working on the previous plan, but because we didn't know things had gone haywire, it just made for some rather amusing and frankly compelling, frantic storytelling and events in the game, because everyone is adapting in real time. And like this is one of those spots where, like, as a player, I try to not go, okay, I as a player know that this has been disrupted, so I'm not going to do the thing I was going to because I know it's not right. You know what I mean? Like I try to not metagame on purpose almost, and it maybe intentionally do the thing that isn't the smartest given what Steve the player knows. But I don't know that you slipped falling up the ladder and broke your leg to get up on the roof to have archery support of the alley that I'm about to go running down to be to confront the orc thugs. So I just go strutting down the street like I own the joint because I think you're up on top of the building with a longbow.
Well, that's reminds me of like when we played Cyberpunk the very, very first time, when it was me, you, that other guy, and that other guy.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy throwing C4 ponies didn't know that our friend was like near the vehicle or that like any of that information, and just chucked with reckless abandon. And then when our friend was like, I'm still alive, the other guy was like, oh, oops.
Well, that actually, though, we were talking about how do you use it, right? I did things to your character, I remember in that game, because you were connected for your day job, where I was intentionally disrupting.
Oh yeah,
What do you
yeah.
want to say?
You were uh, nightly
Go ahead.
operations.
You
I was a. I don't even want to get into the details of this because it's so funny and it's been so long since I played that character. I don't even remember all the details of that game. Um, but yeah, that was
But I
so
just
fun.
remember like
And
telling you your phone's ringing. Like in the
yes,
middle
yes,
of you're having a conversation with other players, and like your phone's ringing.
and it's the Bobs,
Eh,
and I'm trying to like put out with one hand and talk to the bosses with the other, and yeah, that was such a fun game. That was such a fun character because it was a corp that thought he was a solo. He thought he was the coolest guy in the room. Meanwhile, he's just a pencil pushing dork.
But like, I guess maybe that is that an example of a way to take that communication that you have and use it as a, not necessarily for telling the story, but it I thought it did create some tension, some drama
Oh
of,
yeah,
oh crap, I got to answer the
it definitely
phone.
ratcheted the tension. It definitely ratcheted the tension up, and it definitely added some drama to the situation.
So you can use those devices, and look, I am firmly of the belief that, be it magical, technological, whatever, if it exists, someone can hack it.
Oh yeah, yeah. If it
So,
exists, we're listening.
well, not even are they listening? Maybe they just call you on your comm system. You're like, who the heck is this person talking to us? Now what?
Oh yeah, oh
Right?
yeah.
Think about
Or
what it does to your players.
yeah, where they just intercept comms and like, oh well, you know, I kind of sound like the other player.
Yeah, no, we've been watching season 2 of The Night Agent. Or,
Mm,
we watched season 2 of The Night Agent, and there's a sequence in that plays heavily into that.
yeah,
Um, you know, so yeah, I think like those communication things, right? Like, yes, it's, there is an element of, right, like you have to tell a story differently, maybe, if they've got access to that, but at the same time, you can use it and mess with it to make in ways you can't if it's not there.
right.
And maybe that's the whole key.
I think so. I think well, any tool to mess with your players is a great tool to have, and
And
whether that be good or bad. I mean,
well, and just to be clear, we're not talking about like messing them with them maliciously, but like I think part of the art of GMing is both fulfilling their expectations and subverting their expectations and hitting them with things they weren't expecting.
right?
Like it's this
Yeah,
weird balance of all of that and some other things too. But like, you give them what they want, but maybe things come with what they want that they didn't think about.
yeah. Oh, monkey's paw, everything. Monkey's paw,
It,
everything. That's been my slogan in gaming for a while now.
and it's, I don't know, but it is, and it's a
Oh, you got your
fascinating
family
thing.
back? You finally rescued your family, huh?
But I think though, I wonder, because I remember back in, the 90s, when I started gaming, we didn't think about, if we were playing fantasy, the idea of even like the message spell that, Sam Riegel used the crap out of in Critical Role, or, we didn't think about that, it was just, well, we
No.
don't have that. But now that, we as people are so used to that, is it hard for people to 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 game a situation without that? You know what I'm saying? Like, have we
Yeah,
become, for lack of a better word, so dependent on it that we're lost without it? And
I
I'm asking
think
this
the
partially because
unfortunate
you and I are of different ages in a way, right?
I,
We're like,
I yeah, I think the unfortunate answer is maybe, but I think to like my age group and the people that played around with my age group and early gaming, yeah, I agree with you. We didn't really think about the message spell. And then it seems like, yeah, maybe taking that away completely does cause a bit of a issue, but I don't know. I'm also, how do I put this? Hmm. Yeah, I think it could. I think it could really mess up Like it could really put a wrinkle in a gaming, like a whole storytelling session. But I remember, like you were saying, early gaming, we never really messed with like message spells or any of that. A lot of the early gaming stuff that I did was just table talk, right? Like, oh, well,
Yeah.
he's this to me. And, that's sort of a lot of it. But yeah, I think nowadays with that instant messaging, instant, communication stuff, taking that away could really put a wrinkle in somebody's plans or somebody's gaming.
Yeah, and like I said, I wonder too if some of this is a generational thing, like, right? Because so I was into my early to mid 20s before cell phones became pretty much ubiquitous. You know, you I'm guessing,
I
yeah, I don't
was
know when you got
about
your
10
first
years
phone,
behind you.
but
I was
I'm
about
guessing,
10 years behind you. I was
yeah,
probably in 13, 14, somewhere around there.
right. And then you take anyone, younger than you, so to speak, cell phones have just always been.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I
You know,
was just talking to my brother-in-law. He literally just turned 18, and I was talking to him and just realizing how like ubiquitous cell phones and existing without them is wild to certain people and certain age groups. And yeah, to me and to you especially, I'm sure, uh, I could put this thing down and walk away tomorrow.
well, like, okay, look, I was 17. I spent 11 months in another country with no
Mm-hmm.
cell phone. Now, yes, there were
Right.
landlines, but
Yeah, I'm sure you had payphones and everything.
oh yeah, those were, well, yeah, payphones were a thing then, right? But like, like I said, it's one of those, like, I just wonder, and I'm not saying having that stuff in games is good, bad, or otherwise. I just, you know, I think it bears thought depending on, what age bracket you're in, what your frame of reference is, because we are kind of at this stage in the world, right, where there's this gap, where, like, the Gen Xers like myself, where if we grew up without the internet, like, I the, my first email account I got as a college freshman. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I didn't grow
Yeah.
up with the internet up until that point. You know,
Right.
the internet for you has kind of always been there.
It,
Not necessarily as expansive as it is now, but
yes and also no. But I think it's also a consequence of where I grew up and how I grew up. But yeah, I get what you're saying. As a concept, it has my entire lifespan. But in reality, it's a little bit more complicated than that as far as
oh
like.
yeah, well, I
And
guess what I'm saying though is,
that's a
like, to a certain
personal.
point,
It's person to person type thing too. But
right?
yeah,
But, like,
no,
so
I
to
get
speak,
what you're
the internet
saying.
was something you didn't have, but when I was,
But
in
existed.
high school,
Yeah.
the internet really wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, I get exactly what you're saying. Um, but yeah, it's yeah. I think there's a lot more here. I'd like to explore this topic a little bit more maybe in the future. Um, I wouldn't even be opposed to, yeah, I don't know,
Hey, yeah, maybe
putting
we
up.
find somebody to talk about this with, because, like, I think there is very much kind of a weird age generational thing that
Yeah, I feel
affects
like
this
we need
too.
someone. I feel like we need to talk that's maybe younger than both of us for this as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, maybe
Um,
kind of have it, like, because I think I don't know,
I'm in a
I don't
weird
exact
tweener, like,
right, where I think technically toward the tail end of Gen X, probably. I don't know. I don't understand how that all gets, you know.
it's, what is it, 89? No, no. Hold on. I don't remember the exact ages.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know that the exact number.
Gen X is 65 to 79, and then millennials are 81 to 96, and then Z is 95 to 09. So I was born in 93 for reference.
Right. I was
So
born in
that puts
76.
you right. So we're both like on the tail ends of our generation.
Hmm. And I think, like it's a weird thing. And like I said, I wonder how that sort of, because we kind of came of age along with the internet and mass instant communication. Yes, I was older than you, but like at the same point, you kind of grew up with that becoming what it is. I wonder how that affects our perception of it in the context of how it gets used in a game as opposed to someone who that's just what they know.
Well, yeah, and I think that's where we I think we've come to the conclusion we need to bring somebody on that's maybe some younger than us and can talk on that because I obviously and this is one thing that I really love about having guests on here. I, I talk about my experiences all day long, and I'm sure you can talk about yours. But it's so
Right.
cool to hear it from another person's perspective.
Right. And I think, like we say it all the time, right? As a podcast, we're not trying to be experts and say, do A, B, C. We're trying to say, hey, think about these different ways you could do things. Take a different perspective, take a different approach. And so, yeah, I agree. I think we need to find someone, like you said, younger than you that that can kind of come at this from sort of, so we can
Yeah,
hear maybe some
have
other
that
perspective
conversation.
there.
Yeah. But with all that being said, I think it's time we move into Game of the Week.
Woohoo! Game of the week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
So my Game of the Week, and I'll just kick things off. My Game of the Week is actually a bundle.
Okay.
And it is, let me bring it up in front of me here. I set it in the green room. It is the Cyber Rats Complete Collection. I didn't know about Cyber Rats. It's all of $20. It is, looks like 2 games that would normally be, regular price $12. So you're saving a little bit of money. But yeah, it's basically your genetically engineered operatives addicted to biotech, which is a glowing gel that gives you superhuman powers. The world's been invaded by extraterrestrials known as interlopers, and you have been employed by a megacorp to ensure that the aliens don't win. This sounds like something I would want to play. I don't know. It has this like cyborg mutant dystopia. Like I don't know. I dig it.
It my gut reaction to it was it's a cyberpunk take on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Pretty much, yeah. And there was a sort of dystopian Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series for a while that was awesome that I always forget the name of. And this sort of gives me those vibes as well. I think it's neat. I think it looks cool, and it's all of $20, and yeah, definitely something to check out. And that's called Cyber Rats. And like I said, that's the complete bundle that I posted up there.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely we'll drop that in the show notes. So I stumbled across something today, and I know previously I've mentioned a couple of Onyx paths, like they came from beyond the grave or they came from beneath the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I discovered something today that apparently they also did some shorter form things along those lines. And so what I've found, and here let me link it to you, is what Onyx Path is calling the Came From the RPG Anthology.
Oh, cool.
So this is about a 300-page book. Now, PDF is $30. It's available print on demand. It's not cheap. Print on
No.
demand. It's like $54 to $80 depending on exactly what you want. But what this is, apparently, like they did a bunch of like mini versions of these. They came from things like this includes, so apparently they use a kind of simplified, streamlined version of the story path, the engine, kind of
Okay.
like, kind of very pulped out, very much for this kind of, this is also a very pulpy, kind of quick, hammy, dramatic type theme going here, right? This comes with gunslinging westerns in They Came From Cowboys Gulch, noir and hard-boiled cases, and they came from the mean streets. Costume dramas, and they came from Bridgeton Rectory. Sci-fi, they came from Interstellar Starship. Shakespearean theater, they came from the Bard's Quill. And some other ones, right? There's murder mysteries, post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland, high seas adventure, fighting games, martial arts, like
bunch of cool little fun
yeah
topic games. Yeah.
And like a lot of times these, well, I know I say it all the time, but these heavily themed things, sometimes they're just so darn fun when you lean into the theme and just go for it. And you know what? Like, is everything in this book going to be what you like? Probably not.
No.
But there's a lot of different stuff in here for you to do fun stuff with.
Yeah, definitely something to check out.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool. And that's, aside from the print on demand options, that is a pretty reasonable price for that.
I mean, yeah, you're getting like literally a full size, hardcover book at that point, right? Like it's 300 plus pages.
Right.
And, like it says, full quick play system, streamlined story path, campy, pulpy, hammy, like, but just good, easy fun, like in a sense, right? Like, is it going to have the depth that maybe Exalted or your Vampire the Masquerade game? No, but it doesn't mean it isn't fun. You know what I'm saying?
No, that sounds great.
This looks like it's really like would fit like the way you like to do a lot of things, where you have that kind of like, I don't want to say schizophrenic, but you're like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do that.
Oh,
and this would let you do all those things.
I could easily string together an anthology game out of this. Like, I think that's the point of it, but I think I could easily string together one of my like ADHD anthology games out of this. But with all that being said, as always, links to everything are in the show notes. Gamer Nation Con, our Discord, our Patreon, check it all out there. We do want to remind everyone to be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at @andrpgs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast, on Discord at Me and Steve RPGs, and as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.